Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Deal with D and J. I'm your co-host, DJ McCatherine, with Jacob Prail. Sitting over there. Is that a fresh do, buddy?
Yeah, fresh haircut. Got it last week. Got to get it ready. The hair is just too long.
The haircuts. You got to keep it fresh. You know what else is coming up, though? College football. We got polls coming out. The coaches poll just came out. Interesting list, if I might add. Big Ten talk is on the agenda today. A couple of NFL news as well. Why don't we kick it off with the NFL news? That's because that's going to be a quicker topic here. Terry McLaurin and Micah Parsons, to stay on the theme of Big Ten talk, two former Big Ten players, requested trades from their respective teams. Parsons from the Cowboys and McLaurin from the Commanders. Terry McLaurin has been in contract withholding. He thinks he deserves to be paid more than what they're offering for sure. So he's holding out. Where do you think Terry McLaurin, Jacob, stacks up against other receivers in the league? He's obviously been one of the more underrated wide receivers, I think. Where do you think he stacks up? Do you think this holdout is justified? And what do you think he should be paid?
Yeah, I think Terry McLaurin's a top, 20 wide receiver in the league right now, especially maybe even top 15 with how Jaden Daniels has performed from this previous year. He has over 6,000 yards in his career, right? Last year, he had, nearly 1,100 yards, just a little shy of that, right? He's been 1,000-yard receiver nearly every year of his career except his rookie year where he was only 80 yards short of that, right? I think and also missed, several games as well. I think for Terry, his holdout's justified. But I also think for the Commanders, what they're doing is also justified because Terry, he's going to be in his 30s, right? Right now, he is, approaching that threshold where people really start to kind of hold their breath. He's 29 right now. He'll be 30 throughout the point of the season. And you're going to give him a contract where, most wide receivers, this is, the twilight of their careers when they hit that over 30 threshold. I think both teams are justified. I think both teams are what they are. But I think for the Commanders, the Super Bowl window is now. And if you're not that focused on a Super Bowl, then I guess continue to go with, what they're doing. Terry then said, the next part of what he wanted to do was to request a trade, which is typical business negotiations in the NFL. And now at this point, I'm not sure where they go. I don't think he'll get traded. I think they'll figure something out. Probably something along the lines of $34 million a year, front-loaded, 4-year contract. But there's no promises either. That's what that'll end up being, though.
Yeah, this is saying that Terry his asking price is north of $30 million. Spotrac says he's worth about $27.5 million a year. So there's quite the gap here in you just said 34
I said 34
million.
Plus that kind of incorporates some bonuses and what that number may look like. It might be incentive driven, who knows. I do think Terry is worth apparently they try to be in the middle, but Terry really wants that number north of 30. And the Commanders are we can't do that because they also got to pay Jaden Daniels down, and they're front loading a new stadium. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's a interesting, decisions that they're doing here. But if I'm the Commanders, I would be re-signing Terry rather quickly.
What I think the Commanders definitely need to sign him. I mean, the production that he puts in and year out, like you said, he's averaging on average more than 1,000 yards a year. Where do you think this production goes if he's not there? The stress that Jaden Daniels probably going to have without his star wide receiver. And it's not like they don't have other means of scoring, right? This was a very diverse offense last year with Eckler in the backfield, and then Jaden Daniels being, the run pass threat that he is. But Terry McLaurin holds so much weight in that wide receiver room that I don't think there's really a number out there that really doesn't make sense to pay Terry, right? I understand. I mean, Jaden Daniels has 4 years before he has to get paid, right? They could take a 5th-year option on him and wait until McLaurin's contract is up, right? Maybe you throw in a player option or maybe even a team option at that rate and trade him after a couple years if you don't like if they don't win with Jaden Daniels here in about 2 years, right after Terry signs his contract here, then it might be worth exploring what to do with Terry at that point. At 32, he's still got value to him. He's going to be an asset for a team that needs a wide receiver. So I think having that option makes sense. But there are a couple of wide receivers that are getting paid more than $30 million a year. And I'm curious if you think that Terry McLaurin is worth that. Are you taking Terry McLaurin or DK Metcalf? Oh, this is an off-brand topic of would you rather. So there are a couple of wide receivers getting paid more than $30 million a year. And I want you to tell me if you would rather have Terry at the price tag over $30 million or the wide receivers I'm about to spit out to you, right? Some of them are going to be obvious, some of them not, but just bear with me here. Brandon Ayuk,
Terry,
Tyreek Hill,
Tyreek,
Amon-Ra St. Brown,
Amon-Ra,
A.J. Brown,
AJ Brown.
DK Metcalf.
I think I will take Terry just because he can go. I think Terry, yeah.
And the last one I'm going to spit out because you're definitely not going to choose them, and I don't think you're going to choose Terry in this realm either, but Terry or CeeDee Lamb.
CD.
So you went about, four of seven? I think you said you were taking over Terry, and then you left Ayuk, or 4 of 6, excuse me. And then you left Ayuk getting paid $30 million and DK getting paid 33. A.J. Brown is at 32, Amon-Ra at 30, and Tyreek is also at 30. And then CD's 34.
Yeah, I think Terry's worth every bit of the money. Ayuk, while he is younger, has way more injury problems versus
Right.
Terry, literally 14 games, 15 games, and since 2021 has done 17. He's played in all 17 games, right? Versus you look at a guy like DK Metcalf, played in 15 games, but he had some injuries last year. Played in all 16, played in all 17, played in 17, played in 16, played in 16. I do think Terry, just like he's done the work, and he's stuck through some bad teams over in Washington.
Mm-hmm.
If there's one guy you're gonna pay, this is the guy that you should pay. But again, I don't think you should get anything north of 32 million at most. I know I said 34. That's a little too much. 30, nothing north of 32 at the most. Nothing over 32.
I think that's a good ballpark number because I mean, looking at the numbers, there's nothing here saying that he's slowing down in any capacity. He hit a peak in 22. That was his career high in receiving yards, right? Just south of 1,200 yards. I mean, he's pretty consistently around the 1,100 range per year. So I think the Commanders would be stupid, especially with a new stadium coming. I mean, Terry deserves, within his tenure there, to be one of those banners that comes down alongside of Jaden Daniels and more than likely Austin Eckler as far as leading that offense. So I think they should. And then still staying in the NFC East, to be even more specific, Micah Parsons, after a long dispute of holding out of contracts, and going through the nonsense of Jerry Jones and tweets coming out with people in support of Parsons, has finally requested a trade from the Dallas Cowboys. Probably the biggest key defensive player returning this year. Maybe Stephon Diggs?
Travion.
No, Travion Diggs, excuse me. Maybe with the exception of Travion Diggs. I mean, what does this say to the fan base that Jerry Jones is making life so? I mean, this is Jerry Jones masterclass, right? We saw it with Dak, we saw it with Zeke. This is all something that we've seen before. This is a guy who's year in and year out produced for you. I mean, you had to trade for CeeDee Lamb. You had to. They did draft Dak, but they put him through hell to get that contract. Same with Zeke. Do you think the Cowboys are getting through? And what does this say to the fan base that every one of these processes ends so poorly? I don't know that it's gotten to the point that somebody's had to request a trade, but now they're here.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's a no-brainer that you should re-sign Parsons. Like, DJ, let me just give you some of these stats here. Ready? Rookie year, 84 combo sacks, 84 combo tackles, 64 solo tackles, 13 sacks, 3 forced fumbles, 3 pass deflections. 2022, 65 combo tackles, 42 solo, 13 and a half sacks, 3 forced fumbles, 3 fumble recoveries, 3 pass deflects. In both those years, he was first team All AP, Pro Bowl, had some MVP voting. He was Defensive Player of the Year runner-up, Rookie of the Year, and he was Defensive Player of the Year runner-up twice, actually. 2020, I believe he got, nothing crazy here. He did, efficiency go down a little bit. 36 solo tackles, 64 combo tackles, 14 sacks, only 1 forced fumble, 1 fumble recovery, 2 pass deflections. That year he was second AP, Pro Bowl, and finished third in Defensive Player of the Year. Last year he got hurt, missed some games, but still was on a sack per game. Like, he had 12 sacks last year, 43 tackles, 30 of them solo, 2 forced fumbles, and 1 pass deflect. Like, I want this dude on my team. And the fact that the Cowboys are kind of just playing around with it tells me they're kind of just like, again, Jerry Jones is a businessman. He really only ever negotiates with the players directly. Apparently, this has always been his MO. So, like, Micah's like, go deal with my agent. Like, they want to get a deal done. I think what it'll dominate headlines. I don't think they're actually listening to any trade offers. I think it's all smoke. I think Micah gets signed like a week before the season starts. I think this is all just smoke and mirrors. And if he does get traded, the asking price is at least 3 first-rounders, maybe 2. Maybe 2 and like another guy that has some value. But it's going to be quite the package. Like Khalil Mack, I think they gave up 2 firsts at a minimum from the Bears to get Khalil Mack. So, like, I think for teams, it's just everybody wants Micah Parsons. Let's not kid ourselves. But It's a heavy, 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 heavy asking price to try and trade for him, especially because you're going to have to give up so much draft capital that you're going to forego your needs for the next 3 years on a defensive player. I'm not quite sure. Some teams are going to be willing to do that. Some teams are aggressive. Some may not be. Right? A team like the Bills can say, we need to get an elite pass rusher because we're wasting Josh Allen. Arguably one of the, he might go up there with Dan Marino as one of the greatest quarterbacks to never win a Super Bowl. Right? So, like, I think that's the minimum asking price is minimum 3 rounds, and that's just to maybe get the conversation started.
Right. So they're getting paid a ton of money in that defensive end position. I mean, Myles Garrett's getting paid $40 million, Max Crosby $35, Nick Bosa $34, Chris Jones defensive tackle $31, and I believe T.J. Watt's getting paid $28 million a year. I feel like that's actually wrong. I feel like was getting paid north of 40. But
who
regardless,
was it?
T.J. Watt.
He just signed a new contract, so I think he's getting paid more than that now. But continue on while I look it up.
I thought it was like 41 and a half or something like that. But regardless, I mean, the asking price is a ton of money per year. But you're talking about a kid who's, 24 years old, 25 years old? Micah Parsons is? Micah Parsons is 25 years old, right? Like, if you're trying to win, and you're trying to win with Dak under contract too, this is the guy you want on the defensive side.
To talk about T.J. Watt, T.J. Watt signed a 3-year, $123 million extension. So his contract doesn't start until next year, with $108 million of it being guaranteed.
Well, yeah, so I think that pushes him over the $40 million a year mark with his total contract. But like I said, the asking price is huge, and they paid Dak $40 million a year, which was arguably not deserved. Right? Like, Dak is a regular season merchant, but he does tend to fumble the bag a ton. And $40 million should be a playoff quarterback year in and year out. But I think Jerry Jones is really messing with this fan base, man. I mean, Cowboy fans, they never die. But he really puts them through the ringer before something actually happens. So, I don't know. I hope he resigns with the Cowboys. That's a fit. Like you said, rumors of the Bills. I think I heard something about the Steelers as well. That could be a real dangerous duo of T.J. Watt and Micah Parsons on either side of each other. That could be That's a Mike Tomlin masterclass right there. So it'd be interesting. I wonder where him go in this whole process. So that's it for right now in NFL talk. There will be plenty to come. The joint practices have started as well. So we'll give updates as those come out. But we're gonna move on to the coaches poll is hot off the press as of a couple days ago, so it's probably cooled off now. But very interesting nonetheless. DJ got some education. DJ fumbled a couple of TikToks. So for those who did see it,
Third time's a charm.
third time's a charm, baby. Interesting discussions.
What's your initial reaction of this? I want to cut you off because I want to know your initial reaction to this, because outside of 10, it's kind of a jumbled mess.
Well, I think
me.
everything outside of 7 is a jumbled mess. I think having Alabama, LSU, and Miami sitting at 8, 9, and 10 is just the oddest.
I was going through some stuff.
I can almost smell it. I think anything outside of 7 is really odd. Like, you could jumble around 1 through 7, and I would be okay with it. You know, Texas was returning a squad. Ohio State, defending national champs. They've got some key defensive players coming in. They've always got a wide receiver core. That makes sense. Penn State, I think, is a little high. I'm not going to lie. Penn State shocked me up there, but using the same methodology that Michigan used 2 years ago, Ohio State used last year, Penn State should, by that same logic, be a contender for the national title this year. Using that logic, can James Franklin make the leap? That's discussions for other time. But so Penn State just being up there kind of surprised me. Georgia being at 4, I think they're properly ranked, right? You know, they've obviously got some question marks off the field, right? It's kind of hard to jumble how these players are going to react. They've got a big quarterback issue coming into this season, not knowing how they're going to perform. They don't have Carson Beck anymore. Notre Dame, Clemson, and Oregon, you know, you can't count out their head coaches. I like that. I like the list of the top 7. Could make tweaks. That's fine. Alabama at 8 after last year is insane to me. Jalen Milroe threw himself in and threw himself out of games, right? And now he's gone. You got an experiment at quarterback. Ryan Williams is really what this whole fan base, I think, is holding on to, right? Caleb DeBoer, we don't know what we're expecting this year. We don't know what this Alabama team is, and I think that's just reputation of Alabama coming into play here. I think they definitely need to take a hike down. LSU at 9, are we insane? Or do we really have the faith in Brian Kelly to put this LSU team in the top 10? I mean, Garrett Nussmeier, he could be a favorite quarterback over there in the SEC, but like I haven't seen enough from him to be like, yes, that's the guy that's going to lead LSU to an SEC championship game. I was baffled by that. And then Mario Cristobal's Miami. I mean, how much are they pulling on Carson Beck as quarterback to bring this Miami team into the top 10? And I think that's a ridiculous statement. Like, I wanted to vomit saying that as a possibility for these coaches to take into consideration, because I never liked Carson Beck back there. Never did. And this is going to be a new Miami team, right? They got a nice handful of players got drafted this past year. So Mario Cristobal is an all-time bag fumbler too. All-time bag fumbler with these teams. And good teams as well. But I'm not confident that this team is good. The top 10 threw me for a mess. 8, 9, and 10. I think Arizona State could deserve, you know, a better spot, but I'm not going to go too much further without getting your reaction to the top 10 first.
I think top 10's fine, honestly, minus, like, I wouldn't put Miami there. I'd probably put, like, Arizona State up that high, given what they were able to do last season and the fact that Sam Levitt's back. Now, granted, Carson Beck, you know, Hunter from the Green Dog podcast loves to say Carson Beck was, like, one of the best quarterbacks if, you know, his wide receivers could catch balls. Well, he's going to Miami.
Not true.
I mean, Georgia did have the most drops from wide receivers last year, but it wouldn't have changed a bunch of the other issues that were happening. I mean, I like Texas at 1. I think the only reason why Texas is at 1 is because of everyone they're returning, obviously Arch at quarterback versus the uncertainty of quarterback at Ohio State right now. I think that was the difference maker. Penn State being in front of Georgia, I can live with. I think Notre Dame should have gotten first place votes. I really like what Marcus Freeman does with Notre Dame. Clemson's good to me. Oregon's good. I think LSU should be 8. I do really believe in Nussmeier for what he can do this upcoming season. Not in the sense of like he's going to go win LSU a national title, but like he was such a good pocket passer for them that if the defense can just like be competent and just be better, like they'll, they can, compete. Bama at 9 then would be fine. Arizona State at 10 I can live with. Here, looking at the mess, jumping into like 11 through 20, man, it's all jumbled. Like I get Illinois I'm not sure I quite get Illinois at 12. I know Bielema and Luke Altmaier are really good, but Illinois was what, 8-4 last year? If you can double
Illinois was 10-3 total.
10-3 last season, but again, 10-3 last season, but they played. Penn State was only able to score 7 points, and then they got smushed by Oregon, and then they got smushed by Minnesota. And then they played Michigan State, Rutgers, Purdue, Nebraska, which was Kansas didn't turn out to be that good. Like the schedule wasn't really like anything like crazy.
Right.
You gotta, and this year they kind of avoid much of the same, with minus the fact that they got to play Indiana and Ohio State. I mean, the Duke game will be tough. But again, I think Illinois is a little bit of too high for me. I think South Carolina is right where they need to be. I am a big believer of Lenora Sellers. Big believer. It's not a swing and a miss.
No.
The Michigan one's confusing.
Excuse me, rollover is what that is. But I'm going to let you finish your South Carolina take.
Well, South Carolina take was fine. I believe in Sellers. I believe in Nick Harbor. I think Shane Beamer's legit. But I don't get the Michigan hype of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 losses, and really what should have been 6. They were a 7-5 team last year. I get Bryce Underwood's supposed to be good, but he's not going to get him to 14 in the country good.
He's a true freshman. He's a true freshman.
I don't like
what true freshman do you know came in and just freaking blew up a program like that?
Yeah.
The one I can think of is maybe Tim Tebow, and he was still a bench player. He did good off the bench player.
Yeah.
I don't understand.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know a guy like that, that's done it like that. Maybe, I don't know. Jake Fromm's the only guy that really comes to mind. I said Jake Fromm at Georgia because he played a bunch of years there, and he took Georgia to like some new heights.
Yeah.
SMU I can live with. I think Florida is going to be way better than what they're ranked.
Mm-hmm.
I believe heavy in DJ Lagway. Obviously, the only downside is Billy Napier's your coach. Tennessee and Indiana, I think, are properly ranked. I think K-State's it's fine. And to finish it off, you have Iowa State, A&M, BYU, Tech, and Boise State. The BYU thing I don't get. They don't have a quarterback. They don't know who their quarterback is, right? Like, you're telling me that the rest of the team is going to bail out the most important player on the field, which is the quarterback? No shot. I think Boise State's fine. I think Tech is overranked here. The quarterback, I think for me, I base a lot of what I think about teams is based off the quarterback. Because if you have a competent quarterback, that's going to alleviate so many issues in college football, right? Like, if you don't have a quarterback, you're gonna suck. Like, you got to have a dude, and Tech doesn't have a dude. BYU doesn't have a dude. You're going to put them in front of the likes of Oklahoma, Missouri, Louisville, Baylor, right? Utah, Auburn, right? I hate Auburn, too. I don't think Auburn's that talented either for what's coming up here. But, we'll talk about that next week. But, I don't believe in either of those teams right now. And obviously, it's a coach's poll. So it's not the official AP poll quite yet, but it's an interesting slate of things. I am surprised Missouri's not ranked given what they were able to do in this recruiting portal, especially getting Bo Perbula, right? They have a great, tandem at running back. They got some really good O-linemen, the defense. Oklahoma, I can understand, but they got John Mateer, so that should alleviate a bunch of issues. But it's a coach's poll. Not going to lose sleep over it, but it is a little surprising to me.
I don't know what coaches on what earth decided Michigan was 14, top 15 good. I mean, they escaped Alabama, right? It was a good comeback. They That's fine. I get it. They lost their best defender in the secondary and on the line, and multiple linemen at that. So the defense that they're raving, or that they raved about last year, right, was very good, right, especially in the run, is not there anymore. So they lost their defense. They had no offense, right? Offense was non-existent. Donovan Edwards was non-existent. I can't even remember the quarterbacks' names, but I know that they were bad. I was at that game, was miserable for multiple reasons. Michigan 14 is absolutely absurd. I think if you put Michigan up against Ole Miss, maybe even SMU, Florida, Tennessee, maybe Indiana as well, I think they lose. I do. I'm betting against them. Maybe they, on any given Saturday they lose to, or they beat one of those teams, but um, even then, that's against the number 19 team, Indiana. So I don't know what coaches from where decided that they were better. Maybe they just wanted to boost Michigan to make their own schedule look better. I think that could definitely be a possibility here, and that's why a program like LSU or Alabama, Miami get more votes towards the top there. But Illinois, again, was too high for me. But it's going to be an interesting year. There are definitely some interesting choices by some of these coaches, but none blew my head up more than the Michigan one. So yeah, and Indiana finished 11-2, second in the Big Ten last year. They escaped by avoiding a lot of big opponents, but nonetheless, Kurt Cignetti is going to return a squad as well. So I have total confidence in him. But moving along, we're going to move into Big Ten talk, Jacob. There's already been a lot of it going through the coaches poll, but Big Ten should be very deep this year, extremely deep. Obviously, heading with the defending national champs in Ohio State, a favorite in some capacities to make the playoff or the championship game in Penn State. Like I said earlier, following the path of Michigan and Ohio State with who they're returning. Oregon, the winner of the Big Ten last year. Indiana, a college football playoff contender. They competitor. I don't know. They attendee,
Participant.
and then Illinois creeping up there, right? Like those are five teams that are built to make playoff pushes this year. And then you have question marks like Iowa, Michigan, USC. I could see coming out of nowhere to make a push. Lincoln Riley always has a decent squad, regardless of how you feel like they might end the season. It's still a good squad out there. And any one of these programs on the bottom half, Nebraska, Washington, Michigan State, Wisconsin, do have the programs that are eligible to pop off any given year. So, with that being said, there's a lot to go over here. Jacob, let's start with it. Who do you like to come up top of this program? We'll go down the list of what teams need to do, our question marks about them. But, who sticks out to you the most as a favorite to win the Big Ten?
I think it's Penn State. I think this is their best chance that they've had in a long time to be the top of the Big Ten. I think they've always been knocking on the door, but I think it's time to put, it's time to bake the bread. It's time to see what your dough is made of. Again, James Franklin has to get the monkey off his back. It feels like he kind of does, but then it's like, we talk about he can't win the big one. And then it's like, well, he's won a couple big ones, right? But then again, the Notre Dame game happens, and Drew Aller throws an insane pick out of nowhere, right? And they lose that game. And, they're bringing back everyone. They brought back both running backs. Drew Aller's back. The OC is back for another year, right? They're bringing back the O-lineman as well. Problem is the wide receivers, man, weren't great last year, and they're hoping that wide receivers they bring in can do it too. They obviously lose athletic freak Tyler Warren to the draft, right? Problem is now, you got a new defensive coordinator in there. Abdul Carter left, right? But they're elite, right? And to me, the question really is can James Franklin conquer his demons? And he hasn't been able to because something always happens. I think that's where it needs to change is he has to conquer these demons. And I don't know what that looks like. I don't know if it's beating – if he's able to beat Ohio State, that's when I'll probably start believing in this team, is if he's able to beat Ohio State.
I mean, he did add an Ohio State defensive coordinator in this offseason in Jim Knowles to cover a track that could inevitably get him through this Big Ten. I don't think it's crazy to say that Penn State can win, right? They stole the best defensive coordinator in football last year, right? Maybe second, with the exception of Marcus Freeman playing that defensive mindset as head coach of Notre Dame. He ran circles, right? The Jim Knowles' only downfall last season was really the Oregon game, right? And Oregon goes to Penn State. Penn State has Oregon as their whiteout game. You know that team's going to be prepared for that. And it's coming off of 3 straight weeks of pancake schedules. So they're going to be looking ahead to this Oregon game right now. Right now they're going to be looking towards it. And then November 1st, they travel to Ohio State in what Ohio State announced as their blackout game. I wonder if it's going to happen at night. I'm assuming that's the present that we're going to get, is this Penn State Ohio State game is going to be at night. And Jim Knowles has a great understanding of the team over there. So there are going to be some new pieces coming in. The offense is going to be different, obviously, for Ohio State. But Penn State has a great head on their shoulders right now. Like, the question has always been, can, like you said, James Franklin get the monkey off his back? And is Jim Knowles the person to pry that monkey off? Do you think the defense stepping up gives the Penn State offense enough leeway to when Drew Allard, I'm going to say it, inevitably makes his mistakes, right, is enough to backtrack those and get that ball back for him after he makes a mistake, or make the stops necessary to keep high-powered offenses like Oregon and Ohio State, and more than likely Indiana this year too? Do you think it's enough?
DJ, I'll tell you what, man. You asked some good questions, and if I had an answer, I'd love to give you one, because I don't. Like,
But what's your feeling?
My gut feeling is I think Penn State shakes off the Demons this year. I'm not sure if they're my national title favorite for me yet. I haven't gotten that far in my processes, but I mean, they have everything. If the wide receivers just get better than what they were last year, they're going to be great. The offense is going to be great. I'm interested to see what happens to Drew Aller. You know, I saw there's a lot of arguments about whether or not Drew Aller's a good quarterback or not. But Drew Aller feels very J.J. McCarthy-like. Takes care of the ball. Really trusts the offense. He has great running backs. Great O-line. What does this sound like? Sounds like Michigan from a couple seasons ago. Last season, he was 25-2 on a touchdown to interception ratio. He takes care of the ball, and that's not sexy, right? They want to see arm power. They want to see everything, but he takes care of the ball. He doesn't put Penn State in a lot of really bad situations. Until the Notre Dame game, he really was a bright spot and took care of the ball. I think for Penn State, I think this has to be the year you exercise the demons. Because if you don't do that, I think you have to have a real conversation about, can James Franklin get you over the hump? We've all said he can. You have it all. You have Ohio State in a quarterback battle right now. So they don't know who the quarterback is. Obviously, this is preseason. So, that's a storyline. Oregon, who knows what's going to happen with them, right? There might be what you call regular season merchants, right? Who knows what Georgia looks like with Gunnar Stockton at quarterback, right? You take in all these accounts, this is the best chance Penn State has had to win a national title, maybe ever. And it's all right there for them. And if they can't, let's say they get knocked out in the quarterfinal, then I think you have real conversations about firing James Franklin.
I think this is it. It is now or bust for Franklin. I mean,
yeah,
he continuously has. So I raised that question about the defense because Penn State historically has a good defense, right? They were top 10 last year. I just had it up here. They were the number 8 offense in football last year, giving up only 16 points per game. That's that means your offense is struggling to produce points when they need to, right? So that drops down to Allard and Singleton and Allen and all these other productions. And we've seen play calls in the past, right, where the defense does its job. And then it comes down to a play call on the offensive side for Penn State, and they do a halfback draw or QB draw on 4th and 7 at Ohio State, on your last play of the game, right? That ends up being their last play of the game. So as much as I think Jim Knowles elevates this defense, and it's hard to fathom that they are getting a better defensive coordinator that just fell into their lap from a better program, right? It's not like Knowles is coming from Oklahoma State like he did to Ohio State, right? He's going from Ohio State down to Penn State. And I think it has been James Franklin on the offensive side that has screwed this Penn State team so many times. And I'm not going to go any further on Penn State, but that is going to be the bottom line for Penn State to get out is, can James Franklin and the offense come through when they need it the most? So Drew Allard, if I'm not mistaken, right, threw an interception to Notre Dame that ended there.
Mm-hmm.
So it comes down to quarterback. And I'm not saying that that's a James Franklin issue. It's just a Penn State offense issue. So with that being said, I want to pull one up from the bottom. Who do you think is underrated or is going to outperform their expectations coming into this year?
Probably Nebraska. I think
Okay.
Nebraska last year was 7-6. I think they have a good chance to maybe become 9-3, right? They avoid everybody, right? They avoid Oregon and Ohio State. They still have to play Michigan, USC, Penn State, and Iowa. But I think those, minus the Penn State games, I think those are very winnable games. I think for them, it's really interesting because Matt Rule normally during his third year, that's normally where he breaks through the glass ceiling. I think Raiola, as going into year 2, he's been there for a while. He knows the offense. He knows the OC now, right? I think it's able to help continue. And I think Nebraska in this conference has a chance to really surprise people, potentially going to the likes of 9-3, 8-4. Like, if you can beat Cincinnati, you're gonna beat your other 2 teams. And if your only loss is Michigan and Penn State, you're looking at 10-2, right? So I think 9-3 is absolutely within their grasp to go win this year and be great and aggressive.
Actually, I'm just pausing for a second. I wanted to pull something up that I didn't have earlier. Beautiful. No, Nebraska, led by Dylan Raiola, definitely has the opportunity to make that step up. I think that's a tremendous take. But to counter that, I think another team sitting out here is PJ Flex, Minnesota Golden Gopher squad has that same kind of wraparound. They've got 2 hard opponents. They arguably the 2 toughest in the Big Ten coming this year in Ohio State and Oregon. But other than that, their ride seems less than bumpy, if you will. Buffalo, is that Northwestern State, NWS? I'm going to say it's Northwestern State. I have no idea. Hold on. Northwestern State, the Demons. Interesting. California, Rutgers. Then again, Ohio State, Nebraska, Purdue, Iowa, Michigan State, Oregon, Northwestern, and then Wisconsin. For these, it's not the hardest schedule in the world. It's not the easiest schedule in the world. It's a lot of the middle of the Big Ten. But if you want to make it out of the Big Ten, you got to make work of those middle of the pack opponents, right? That's what Oregon, Ohio State, Penn State did, and that's what Michigan did a couple years ago, right? They made light work of those teams, and it has been done. Oh, I've seen Northwestern do it. I've seen Purdue do it. I've seen Wisconsin do it. These are teams that can make the work go. Minnesota's done it in years past. PJ Fleck, though, their QB position needs to evolve. He's a fiery guy. He reminds me a lot of James Franklin to a lesser degree, right? He fires up his squad. He's always got a decent one. And it's just like the pieces don't come together like he wants them to, or like James Franklin has put them together, right? James Franklin crumbles from the top. It seems like Fleck is crumbling from the middle here. They've got a new QB coming in. The offense is going to struggle, and I think that's going to be their downfall. Some of these opponents here in the middle, I think going up against California here in week 3 is probably going to be the best tale for this team in its entirety. How they perform in this game. They go to California, which you might not think of as the greatest opponent, but it's a competitive enough team to give them a taste of how they can do against some of these other opponents. Because if they lose to California by a ton, then they got to host Rutgers. Like, Rutgers will run up a score on anybody if you give them the time of day, right? And then they go to Ohio State and play them. And if they're on a roll, that could be damaging. And then Purdue could shock anybody. And then Nebraska, if they're playing as good as what you're saying they could be, then that's going to be dehumanizing too. So this Minnesota squad, they've got the opportunity. They've got the coach that I think can get them there. The execution is going to be tough. But I think if any of these teams outside of Nebraska, I really liked that pick, have an opportunity to, given what they have, I think PJ Fleck and this Golden Gopher squad can do it. So I think we should touch on a couple more of these teams, right? Raise some question marks or see where they might finish. Maybe you think they're overrated or underrated might be a good little topic here, Jacob. What do you say?
Let's run it.
All right. So obviously, Ohio State is going to be towards the top, right? They come back, they reload. I don't really believe the talk of this QB battle, right? They said the same thing last year, and they go through this every year. They want that competitive spirit. Lincoln Kienholz is an athlete. Don't get it twisted. That brother can ball, and he got put in a tough situation when who got hurt that year? I believe it was Kyle McCord. Kyle McCord sat out, and then Devin. Oh my gosh, the name is struggling for me. But Ohio State's backup then got injured within the first 5 minutes, and a true freshman got thrown in the game
Brown.
against Missouri. Devin Brown, thank you. Got thrown into the game against Missouri, and it was just not good. Obviously was beat out last year as a sophomore, but now it's his junior year, and Julian Sayin, I hate to say it, but he is going to be the starter. He's going to be the starter this year. You don't get a quarterback like that in the portal and him not be expected to start. And I love a good QB battle. I think it's great, and I think that's what Ryan Day is doing. He's trying to make it competitive to, one, keep these players here, right? Because the transfer portal is right there. It's open. Maybe not at this very second, but it will be. They could sit out. They could do whatever. But saying is going to be this, they return, they have massive defensive losses, right? They lost a lot of players on the defensive side, but again, they're going to reload. Where do you think this Ohio State squad lands in the Big Ten? A quick overview of it. What do you think? What are your expectations for this team coming in?
I think, again, they're towards the top. Having Jeremiah Smith is just it's hard to not have your offense be good, right? I think obviously the game against Texas is going to give us a good idea of where they are and what they are for both squads. I think Ohio State should be battling with Penn State to punch their ticket to the Big Ten title game again. I'm a little worried about quarterback. I think from what I'm reading here, it looks like Julian Sayin might be the guy. Is that who you said it was, Sayin? But you get a new OC and a new DC. Right? Brian Hartline takes a step up from wide receivers coach to OC, and then they bring in Matt Patricia, right? You lose a big ton of your defensive line, right? Jack Sawyer goes to the draft. You can name them, right? But you bring back Sonny Styles and Caleb Downs, but, this is an Ohio State team that I am expecting a small bit of regression. I didn't really believe in Ohio State a ton last year just because I kept, no offense, doubting Will Howard to do anything, but to my, whatever, I don't know what I'm talking about some days. But I think Ohio State's right at the top, right along with, I want to transition right into like Oregon. They're going to be up at the top too. Dan Lanning's one of the best coaches in college football. He's a psycho, 35-6 since he's taken over Oregon. I think quarterback is an interesting dichotomy because you go away from Dylan Gabriel, right, and Bo Nix, 2 years removed now from Bo Nix, right? And Lanning has done some great things with quarterbacks, but he's bringing in Dante Moore, right? Started 5 games at UCLA in 23 before being benched. He chose to go to Oregon last year and sit behind Gabriel. So we're going to see how it goes, right? I think this team really, again, to me, when I base stuff off of college football, I base a lot of it off of, is your quarterback good enough? And this is the big question for Oregon, because if Dante Moore is legit, they're going to be up towards the top again, right? But if Dante Moore isn't there in terms of his development, this is going to be a regression year for Oregon. So I find them quite interesting, given that most of his offense is kind of predicated on Dante Moore.
No, you said UCLA, right? UCLA transfer, what you said?
UCLA.
Yep. Does have that two-way ability, kind of like Dylan Gabriel did. Like Dylan Gabriel was a masterclass of using his feet when necessary, right? And he had a dart of an arm. when he needed to use it. So I think Dan Lanning does have like you said, the psycho capabilities to turn Dante Moore into what Dylan Gabriel was last year. Rolling down this list, we can roll into Michigan again. Big question marks as to their ranking in the coaches poll. Bryce Underwood is going to be the starting quarterback more than likely coming into week one.
I would hope so.
Right? Like they don't really have great. I don't know what this Michigan team has coming in because they lost a lot of their offensive line and defensive line. Their two best players were out, but Sharon Moore did pull out arguably the biggest upset in a really long time against Ohio State in the last week of the year. And does that give them some credit? Does that give them some viability? Do you think they deserve that credit given what they were able to do last year towards the end of the year?
I think for Michigan, this is just whatever last year's Michigan was, throw it out the window because it's basically and essentially a brand new team. Bryce Underwood, right, coming in now, has the big name, has the money, right? This Michigan offense is going to be vastly improved now. Obviously, you lose Colston Loveland, but you get Justice Haynes from Bama. You returned a veteran O-line, right? And I think that will alone help the offense out from how bad it was last year. Like the defense was still vastly new, and they just replenish what they lose. They do such a great job, right? I think, if Underwood steps into it and can step up in big moments in such a young freshman year, they have a chance again to be in the playoffs. But, who knows? They have quite a somewhat favorable Big Ten schedule, right? You don't have to play Illinois, Penn State, or Oregon, but you do have to go to Oklahoma. You have to go to Nebraska, and you have to go to USC. But you get the game at the Big House this year, and you hate to hear me say this, DJ, but they have Ohio State's number. So,
They do.
It's a interest. I think Michigan's more interesting than I think they're being given credit for, just because of the Underwood experiment, the money, how even last year they were terrible and yet they were 8-5, right? I kind of view that as like a decent season, and they were terrible. But This year, the expectation for Michigan is always college football playoffs, always trying to get into the Big Ten title game. But I expect Michigan to be, again, towards the top there. I mean, I want to touch again probably on one more team because the Big Ten is just so massive. Illinois, I want to touch upon them.
Yep.
Right, last year, 10-3, right? First 10-win season since 2001. They're returning a ton of veteran players, right? Luke Altmaier, great quarterback. Third year starting, right? He can do it all, right? Especially going into this year. And not only that, they get a fantastic draw. I'm reading a lot of these notes courtesy of at Timmy Call 12 of Snapback Sports. Thank you for this one cheater here because they avoid Penn State, Michigan, and Oregon. But you still have to go to Indiana. You get Washington, USC, and Ohio State, right? So you still got to win some tough games. They return, again, they lose some of their wide receivers, right? They bring in some guys. They have an insane secondary that they bring back, right?
Right.
I think the question for Illinois is, can they live up to the hype? I don't know if an Illinois football program has ever had this much hype before, right? I can't remember. This is a very important year for not only Illinois football, for Brett Bielema, for a lot of people. Can they step up to the plate, right? You can't go to Ohio State this year and only score one touchdown like they did last year going to Penn State, right? You can't go to Indiana and lose 14-10. They're expecting a lot of big stuff from this offense. The question is, can Bielema get this team to where they may want to go? And they're a dark horse potentially if everything falls into place. They're a dark horse contender potentially to get to the playoff. Dark horse, because if things go the way it can go, and let's just say out of nowhere they upset Ohio State this season, that just immediately catapults you, right? Depending on how it goes. So I think Illinois is fascinating. I think Michigan's fascinating. I think Nebraska's a fascinating story, even though I don't think Nebraska is in the same tier as Illinois because of the playoff aspirations that Illinois looks like they're going to get, right? USC is interesting. Jaden Mayava, another full year with Lincoln Riley. Does Lincoln Riley finally elevate USC to a bigger brand? Can they get higher? Can they get better? Can they dominate the LA market? Iowa is Iowa. Just expect defense and punts. Like, what does Indiana look like? Kurt Signetti, year 2. And they bring in Mendoza from Cal. The Big Ten is quite interesting. But the problem that I have with this conference is that it is very top heavy. It's almost the opposite of what the Big 12 is. The Big 12, everybody's good, right? You can make an argument for like what we said, 7, 8, 9 teams. Here, you only got 2 or 3 like elite programs. Then you have the good teams, right? Of like we talked about Nebraska, Minnesota, Indiana, right? Illinois, USC, kind of in that range of 10 to 9 wins. The rest of this conference isn't that good. Michigan State's terrible. Maryland is not good. Northwestern is what are we doing, right? Purdue is lucky to get 2 wins in the Big Ten. Rutgers is in the same boat, right? UCLA is kind of a 5-5 team, right? 500 team. Washington hasn't been the same since Penix. And then the Badgers are just scratching for answers, right? So, we named a good amount of teams that were confident, but, a lot of this conference is also really bad. They're just going to beat up on each other. And the top is going to rise to the cream. They're going to get up to the top there, but I'm not confident in the rest of these programs. But I am, but I like Illinois. I like, Nebraska and the teams that I've talked about, but don't think the Big Ten is like this vastly difficult conference either.
I get what you're saying. I think I'm still taking the middle of the road, Big Ten team over the top of the Big 12 teams, though. I mean, you still had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 teams. Nine teams had 8 wins or more.
Brother, you're gonna give me a middle of the road Big Ten team. You're gonna tell me you're gonna take freaking Minnesota over the likes of Arizona State, over Baylor,
Maybe over Baylor,
Iowa State,
maybe over Iowa State. Yes,
you would take Minnesota over Baylor.
I think it'd be a great matchup.
No, you're out of your mind.
No,
you put Minnesota over TCU.
The last year,
you talked about how many teams? I mean, you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 teams, and then there was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Like the Big 12 with less teams had more teams finish over 500 in the same amount in conference play alone. Half the conference was terrible. The conference had a losing record. Washington, UCLA, Nebraska, had a 7-6 record. But they were terrible
12 teams go 500. You had 12 teams go 500. 12 out of 16. 12 out of 18. Sorry.
Brother. The worst above 500 team in the Big 12 was 8-5.
The worst Big 12 team above 500
was 8-5. You're gonna reward Rutgers for going 7-6.
8-5 to 5-7?
No.
And that's how that works.
6. Brother, you got 18 teams in the Big Ten.
You said above 500.
Half the conference isn't good. If you're not the Big Four of the Michigan, Penn State, Ohio State, and Oregon, you're all in the middle of the road, and most of these teams are terrible.
I mean, Iowa was 8-5 and didn't have an offense.
Yeah. Because it's Iowa. They don't play anybody. What
in the Big 12 play?
Brother.
Each other.
We're gonna
And you just said they're not that good.
We're gonna reward Iowa here for beating Illinois State, Troy, Minnesota, Washington, Western Wisconsin, Maryland, Nebraska. They lost to Iowa State. They lost to Iowa State. Literally in a Big 10, Big 12 matchup, they lost to the Big 12 team.
I did lose that one. That's fine.
Oh. Yeah, sucker punched.
Did you get sucker punched on that one?
You didn't see that one coming.
I knew somebody played Iowa State. I forgot that it was Iowa. That should have been a no-brainer.
Listen, I think say what you want. They had, the Big Ten only had one more ranked team than the Big 12. Again, it's just the Big 12 cannibalizes itself year in and year out, and they just get massively disrespected. But
I mean,
the
that's
Big
what
12,
happens within every conference. I mean, when you play 8 games in your conference and you're
9.
not the top team in your conference, the team, they decimate each other. It's the people at the top of the conference, their true losses being in conference opponents, that it collapses. That's what's been wrong with the Pac-12, right? You have a 4-7 team go up against a USC team that's 11-1, beat them and boot them out of the college football playoff contention.
Would you take Illinois over SMU?
Yes, I don't think as we saw in the it was Penn State, right? In the Penn State game, the defense in the Big Ten, I don't think SMU can get around. And Illinois had a very good defense last year as well.
I just think you're disrespecting the Big 12 a little too much over there for my own liking.
It's all right. There are some great contenders in the Big 12, and when the Big 12 is good, college football is good. So good.
I mean, every game's just going to be a dogfight, dude. It's
a barn burner. They're a lot like the Pac-12. They are. When the Pac-12 was it was just barn burners and go-getters. And the Big 12 is a funnel for those teams coming out of the Group of Five, and that's kind of what damages them. To be honest, that's what damages the Big 12 is people coming out from the smaller Group of Five conferences. And that's no disrespect. Everyone needs their opportunity. I mean, Ohio State took in Rutgers for Christ's sake.
Mm-hmm.
But that's where I think the credibility kind of falls. Is you are the heavy weight that the Big 12 gets is from the bottom is where it all sits, because Kansas State, Arizona State, TCU, those are contenders a lot of the years. Oklahoma when they were in there, Texas before they left, they were there. They were holding that conference up. And now they're gone. You had your two powerhouses leave. So now you're just kind of, you are less than what you were, but it doesn't make the games any less exciting. But it's interesting stuff. The Big Ten is wide open this year. I know I said some outlandish stuff about the Big 12, but we're just going to toss that behind us for the time being. But college football is right around the corner, Jacob. I want to get who is your 2 teams in the Big Ten championship game this year, and who is your winner? And if you see any of these teams going to the championship game, who do you got? Hold on. You know what? Let me rephrase one more time. I'm sorry. I want to know Big Ten championship game, the winner, who makes the playoffs, and if you see anybody going over to the championship game.
I gotta look up the Big Ten real quick because they divide the teams into
Nope, it's all now 1 and 2. They're not divided anymore.
But then it was Oregon and Penn State last year, correct? That were in it because Penn State beat Indiana. They had the tiebreaker. I'm trying to see what it was last year because they had. No, it was interesting. It says that Indiana finished second, but I know that it was Penn State that played in it, though. Interesting.
Yes, but
Penn State had a better overall record. That's where the tiebreaker came.
Gotcha.
I think we're gonna look at Penn State and Ohio State in the Big Ten title game. I think for who makes the college football playoff, I think you look at Oregon, Penn State, and Ohio State as the teams who make it in. Illinois barely misses out.
You think only 3 Big Ten teams this year?
Only three. I think Michigan barely misses out. Indiana isn't going to be 11-2.
I think Michigan barely misses out? That's insane.
Yeah.
You picking Michigan to win 9 games this year?
Yeah. I think they can be better than their 8-5 because they're going to beat New Mexico. They're going to beat Central Michigan. They're going to beat Wisconsin. They're going to beat Washington, Michigan State, Purdue, Northwestern, Maryland, and then they're going to beat US. They're going to beat one of USC, Nebraska, or Ohio State. So if they beat Nebraska, that's 9 wins. They beat USC, that's 10. Only losses to
Their schedule was a lot easier.
Oklahoma is going to be a good test for us to see where Michigan is. So yeah, that's my line of thinking is those people right then and there.
Big Ten champion?
Penn State. Penn State, Big Ten champions.
And any of these Big Ten teams going to the national title?
I'll let Penn State get to the national title right now. Yeah.
Wow.
I think that's where their expectations have to be.
Well, expectations, but where do you think they're going to go? I think it's kind of redundant to say that any team's thing is to go to the national title, because that's what it should be. Any of your top three in each conference.
I think they get there. I think they get a path similar to. I think they get a path similar to last year, where they get lucky, right? They'll get the first round bye. They'll get a favorable quarterfinal matchup. They'll get to the semifinal, and at that point, I think a team like, let's say, they play the likes of, let's say it's Arizona State again in the semifinals. Like, I think they have a chance to get them, and then obviously I think they'll make it to the national title. I just need it. I'm not confident in the Ohio State quarterback. I'm not confident in the Georgia quarterback. Oregon's quarterback is an entirely 50-50 toss-up, right? Penn State has a lot of things going for them that makes me feel really comfortable about riding them for the entire season. So I am
Fair enough.
going to go with Penn State in the Natty.
Okay. I agree with your Penn State-Ohio State in the Big Ten championship game. I do think James Franklin, is going to flop, and he's going to miss out in his Big Ten championship game moment. And I think Ohio State is going to reclaim the Big Ten championship for the first time in 5 years, 6 years, something like that. And then I do think Penn State does go into the playoff, along with Ohio State, Penn State, Oregon. Illinois is a big question mark for me. I just think that they may have too much on their plate this year to make their run. And I am totally lying to you, because I thought they played Oregon as well, but they don't. So I think 4 Big Ten teams make it again, and I think it's going to be Oregon, Penn State, Ohio State, and I think Illinois cracks in that number 12, that number 11, number 12 spot, just like Indiana did. And I am actually going to say I think Ohio State has the ability to go back to the national title game. I really do. I think it could change right after week 1. Week 1, for me, the winner of that game goes to the national title, right? I like Texas, right? I like Texas and what they've built. It's very similar to what Penn State's got right now with a less experienced quarterback. But this game, with what each squad has to prove to the other, I think if Ohio State opens up with a win against Texas, they may lose one along the way. But I think that Ohio State can bounce through anything if they beat Texas. So with that being said, I think they do beat Texas, and I think Ohio State goes back to the national championship game. And maybe we get 3 times a charm and get Penn State 3 times next year, and we get an Ohio State-Penn State matchup. Because if it's as good as branded this year, Penn State's as good as branded, and Ohio State continues on this path that they are, I mean, it could be 3 very thrilling games to watch. And James Franklin can get redemption on his Big Ten title loss and his regular season loss that I'm predicting against Ohio State. Thoughts?
I love it. I think you hit a lot of things right on the head with where you're going to go. I think I love all of what you were saying.
Thank you. I pride myself on all of the research that I do.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that concludes our Big Ten talk for the day, correct?
Yep.
Any last thoughts there, Jacob?
Going to be an exciting Big Ten season.
It is. Big Ten is going to be wide open, very competitive this year. Some question marks in some of these top teams as well. Can James Franklin do it? Can Ryan Day repeat? Is Michigan overrated? And can Dan Lanning get his squad back after losing his starting quarterback? A lot of big things. I'm excited, Jacob. How many weeks away are we? What are we? 4 weeks? 5 weeks?
I think we're less than 20 days. Less than 20 days.
Wow. Exciting times. Jacob and we're going to do a whole prediction list, I'm assuming, right, of all of our conference champions and our college football playoff brackets, preseason brackets,
At some point, yep.
and we'll have updates for you. Next week is SEC football. We're going to break down the
Yeah.
SEC conference and who we like. That's a wide open conference as well coming into this year. The top might be a little guaranteed, but everything else is kind of up in the air. So he has been Jacob Trail. I have been DJ McCatherine. Follow us on X, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube. Like, comment, subscribe. Let us know how we did. This has been The Deal with D and J.